and welcome to a very special video. The most requested video on this channel, the Games Room Tour 2024.
Get picker! Building the Games Room! Road trips! Live game hunting!
Hello again folks and welcome back to a very special video. That is because this is the much requested Games Room Tour 2024. I cannot believe it's been 3 years since I last did a tour of my Games Room, and trust me, a lot has changed. There is a massive amount of planning and thought that goes into building a games room. I have racked my brain for literally years to make the most of the space I have. This is by far and away not the biggest games room of all time, but trust me, I have used every single inch of space to the full of its potential. The main factor for me when I was planning my games room was organisation and functionality. I want to be able to easily go to the shelf, find any game and be back on the sofa playing a game in mere moments. That's because, for me, that's what the games room is all about, playing a game. In this video, we'll be doing an in-depth tour of the games room and showing you some of the real gems from my collection. But just before we get into it, I want to remind you folks, if you enjoy this video, please hit that like button and please subscribe, as I put new videos out every Saturday live at 5, as well as bonus content throughout the week, and I really want you folks along for the ride. And if you want to go above and beyond and support the channel that little bit more, please consider becoming a supporter over on Patreon. It's just £1 a month, and trust me, there's some amazing content there. It's definitely worth your pound. Let's get into it then, my Games Room Tour 2024. And we're going to start this video off with a little bit of an overview. So like I've said, this isn't the biggest games room of all time. This was a spare bedroom which I converted over lockdown into a games room. I am very lucky to have this space, and I've utilised 100% of the space in this room. There is no wasted areas. I have covered every part of this games room in shelves and bookcases, so I can store as much as my collection as possible, and I am really happy with how this room has evolved over the last 4 years. It is both functional and beautiful. It is the perfect place to kick back and not just play games but also collect games. For me, this games room is all about being able to play the games, functionality and enjoyment of just being able to sit back and enjoy the collection that I have built. And what better place to start our tour of the games room than right here, where it all happens, the sofa. Yes, a lot of people may enjoy their gaming chairs, but for me, this is the only way to play. I just like to kick back and game all day and all night, and what better place is there for couch co-op? Two friends or family sat here playing until the early hours, you just can't beat it. When it comes to the games room, for me, it's all about planning and making sure there is no wasted space. And beforehand, behind the sofa was nothing but empty wall. And I put 4 shelves in here. And this is a great way to display some of my favourite pieces from the collection. So starting at the top, we have a lot of sealed Pokemon trading card chests. In the middle, we have the Fallout 4 Pip-Boy, which is one of my favourite collector's editions of all time. Going down, we have a shelf dedicated to Disney Infinity. I'm aiming to get a complete Marvel and Star Wars Disney Infinity set. A little further down, we have various game lights, some collector's editions, just some cool pieces to make a nice background for filming. Further down, even more of these Pokemon chests. And disclaimer, this is my wife's collection of Pokemon chests. She is a massive fan and she always keeps these sealed. Next to the door to the games room, we have the first of many IKEA Billy bookcases. There is a reason this is the most sold bookcase in the entire world. These are cheap and they have amazing functionality, and they just work perfectly for displaying games. And this is the first of many shelves here, like I said. I like to theme all of my shelves, and this one right here is Nintendo themed. So at the top we have my CIB NES, then some various Nintendo display pieces, including some promotional pieces from Paper Mario, some of the minis, some Lego. This top shelf is a shelf I'm not entirely happy with, as it has become a bit of a mishmash of just various games and consoles. This is what I more prefer: the complete in-box SNES games, the N64 games, the GameCube bleeding down into the Wii, the Wii U and the Switch. I like to put all my games in kind of themed collections in chronological order, and this is just the start of many IKEA Billy collections. Next to the Nintendo shelf, we have another new addition to the games room. This again is an IKEA glass display cabinet. Now sadly they don't make these cabinets anymore, but they are absolutely perfect for my Star Wars Black Series helmets. Now I never pay full price for these, but I am a massive Star Wars nerd, and honestly these are some of the best merchandise ever made for any of the Star Wars films. I have made this a Mandalorian themed Star Wars helmet collection. So at the top we have the Mandalorian's helmet, because this is the way. Next, the Artillery Stormtrooper from the Mandalorian series. Just below that we have Bo-Katan, and finally at the bottom we have Axe Wolves. I have got these all at bargain prices, and for me they are some of the best Star Wars merch in the world. Next to my Star Wars helmet display is another area of the games room which has changed quite a lot over the past 3 years, and this comes down to storage and display solutions. Now, full disclaimer, some of my collection has gone into storage. That's because, as try as I might, I cannot display everything. Now, two of the main items which have mainly got into display are some of my big box PC games and a lot of my DVDs, but I still have some of my favourite items here on display. On the top of the shelf we have some of my favourite action figures of all time, the TMNT NECA cartoon double packs. Just below that we have some of my very favourite PC big box games. I wanted to keep some of these out for display. Just below we're going into my TMNT shrines. We have DVDs and Blu-rays of some of my favourite series and movies, and below that my TMNT countercade. Unfortunately I can't plug this in just because there's no electricity behind the shelf, but it's an amazing display piece. Below we go into our Sega Saturn games then. Unfortunately below that it's a little bit of a dumping ground. As much as I've stored a lot of things, there's still some things which I need to find space for, so I normally tend to put them on the lower display shelves. If you've been a fan of the channel for a while, you'll be familiar with this shelf right here. So on the top we have a collection of action figures as well as my Sega Mega CD box. But below that we have one of the most famous parts of my collection, the near complete PlayStation 1 Platinum PAL collection. I am about 4 games off having every single PlayStation 1 Platinum game released here in the PAL region, and I'm still trying to find those elusive few games. That was my challenge for 2023, to try and find all 160 PlayStation 1 Platinum games, and my challenge for 2024 is to try and find every single PlayStation 2 Platinum game released here in the PAL region. Now this is ongoing, so if you enjoy the sound of this challenge, please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, and stay tuned for the next episode of the Platinum Project PlayStation 2. Below my PlayStation Platinum collections, we have the majority of my Sega kart-based games. So this first shelf is all Master System games. Then below that we have my Black Spine as such Mega Drive games, and below my Blue Spine Mega Drive games. As I said earlier, I like to try and theme my shelves, and hopefully this themes them quite nicely. And on the bottom we have just part of my massive Xbox 360 collection. Now the games room is an ever evolving beast, and there's always going to be some parts of the games room which I'm not happy with, and that is definitely this corner of the games room just under the window here. It's a very strange space, and honestly mainly at the moment I'm using it for storage. As you can see, we have some of the larger boxes stacked up here in the corner. Not ideal, but next to it we do have a very functional chest of drawers, and these are perfect for storing controllers, handheld consoles and t-shirts. Before I had a very small chest of drawers here, and I definitely needed a bigger space. Once again, all of these drawers are themed. I have a Sega drawer, a Nintendo drawer, a PlayStation drawer and an Xbox drawer, as well as my t-shirts and my handhelds like I said before. Once again, this isn't ideal. I could probably plastic bag all of these controllers up separately, but as I said, the games room is ever evolving and things are always changing for the better over time. And even if you're not happy with something right now, in the future, you probably will be. Which brings us on to the largest part of the games room, the wall of games. And once again, these are all stored on IKEA Billy. That's because for practicality and price, this is the best solution in my mind to store games. Now it isn't perfect. These are the slightly older model of IKEA Billy, and I have stored the games too deep, but I've used that space to its maximum potential. On the top here you can see I have collector's editions, cool little items, boxed consoles, all displayed up there to just really have them on display and also a perfect way to store them. Going down, it's done in chronological order. Like I said earlier, I like to theme my shelves. It starts off with the OG Xbox, going on to the Xbox 360, some smaller collector's editions, some of my steelbooks, but this is just the first of 3 massive stacked shelves. Next up, we have what is quite possibly the most iconic camera shot in the games room. That's because this is where I film a majority of my videos, just so I have this absolutely breathtaking background behind me. And starting off on the top here, we have a little tiny Pokemon shrine. So we have a box console, some of the rarest box games, and that kind of flows down into the Xbox One. So the Xbox One is definitely a console which I've still got some of the most room to grow. For me, I always try and have some more space. You can see on the shelf here, there's a lot of room to grow. Going down, once again, we go into some of my steelbooks, then onwards again into the Xbox One. Going down, we go into the PlayStation 1, and this is one of the biggest parts of my collection. It's actually surprising how big my PlayStation 1 collection is, and I have done a separate series really deep diving into that, and at the bottom of the shelf, it starts to go into just the start of my PS2 collection. And last but not least, we have my third IKEA Billy stacked with games. So you can see we have some collector's editions and figures and collectibles on the top, then going into the second half of my PlayStation 2 collection. Now, a lot of my PS2 collection's in storage because any game I have on Platinum, I've put into storage because I'm obviously trying to go for the complete PlayStation 2 PAL Platinum collection. Then we have my Mega CD and Dreamcast games, and then we start to head into the PlayStation 3. Now, other than the Xbox 360, the PlayStation 3 is definitely one of my biggest collections. I was a massive fan of this generation of gaming. There is just so many incredible games, and just because of the nature of most of these being HD, they're just still playable today. And finally, we head into my PlayStation 4 collection, including my steelbooks. I absolutely loved the PlayStation 4, and I still love the PlayStation 4. I was a very early adopter of the console, buying it about 6 months after it launched, so I have a very, very large PlayStation 4 collection, and I really enjoy still collecting for the PlayStation 4 just because, of course, all of these games are backwards compatible on the PlayStation 5. It just goes to show that backwards compatibility is a very important factor when it comes to consoles. As you can see here, my PlayStation 4 steelbooks and my PlayStation 5 games, a collection which is just starting to grow, and just below we have a selection of handheld games. Now, I mainly collect for home consoles, so I do have a smaller collection of handheld games, but who knows, maybe in the future this will grow. And now that's all the shelves, onto some of the other more interesting bits of the games room. Like I have said, there is no wasted space here in the games room, and that's why I have these 2 shelves above the television in what would otherwise be wasted space. And these shelves are absolute anarchy. There is a little bit of everything. There is box consoles, merchandise, controllers, figures, just a little bit of everything I love, and it is honestly organised chaos. You can see the back wall is decorated with these Funko Pops, but in front we have both modern and retro action figures. A little bit of everything. There is no rhyme nor reason here. It's just a little bit of everything that I love. And this, for me, personifies what a games room is all about. It is about the person who is building its personality. Some people like to go for minimalist look, but I just love to fill every single space. I want wherever you look in the games room to be something you've never noticed before. Something cool. Something that just catches your eyes. Something that brings back nostalgia. For me, the games room is not just about collecting. It's about reliving some of my favourite moments and favourite games of all time, and just bringing it all together in this absolutely amazing collection in this amazing room. But once again, it's not quite perfect. It does seem that windows are my enemy, as this area once again under the window is somewhat of a wasted space, but I'm working on it. Which brings us round to my very own glass cabinet of dreams. Now, this has some of my very favourite items in from my collection, and it's not just items that hold a massive monetary value. Some of these items just hold great memories for myself, and I really wanted to capture them and store them in the perfect way here in my very own glass cabinet of dreams. I'm sure it won't come as any surprise by now that the top of this glass cabinet of dreams is once again stacked to the ceiling with collector's editions and Pokemon cards. But going down each shelf of this glass cabinet of dreams is themed. So on the top here we have my Gears of War shrine. I absolutely love the Gears of War series and cannot wait for the next installment of this game. Little further down we have the absolutely incredible collector's edition for Cuphead, then a Fallout shrine. I love every single Fallout game, and yes, I mean every single Fallout game. It has some of the best merchandise and I absolutely love it. And finally, at the bottom, one of my holy grail items, my Virtual Boy. I love this console. Which brings us on to our final stop before the main event of this, the Games Room Tour 2024, my last bookshelf. And this is mainly books. So of course it's stacked to the ceiling on top. The top shelf is my brand new AEW figures, CIB. Then it goes down into some of my magazines. I'm a massive avid fan of Retro Gamer magazines, so I'm slowly getting a very large selection of those. Some Lego clocks, I don't think any of which have the correct time. Then it goes into my strategy guides. I'm a massive fan of collecting strategy guides, both hardback and paperback, and this is something which I wanted to have on display. Here it is then, folks, the main event of my Games Room Tour 2024. My console unit and my televisions. This is where the magic happens. This is how I play the games. And I have to have the correct hardware for the correct console. And that's why I've got televisions. For my modern gaming, we have this ultra up-to-date 4K 65-inch television. This is the best way to play your PlayStation 5, your Xbox One. Any modern games look best on this console. But of course, when it comes to retro gaming, there's no better way to play retro games than the way they're supposed to be played on a CRT television. And for my money, the Sony Trinitron is the best way to play retro games. Starting here then, we have my Philips Ambilight television. Now this thing really comes into its own at night, and I'm going to show you what the games room looks like at night at the end of this video. This is an absolutely fantastic TV, and these lights just give it even more immersion. On the top here we have my Xbox One, Evercade, a NES emulator, and all of my controllers. I like to have my controllers on charge all the time because when it's time to play the game, I need to be charged, ready to go. Just below my Switch here is one of my favourite gadgets in the games room, and this for me is one of the most important pieces. This is a video audio switch, and this is hooked up to the CRT television and is in turn hooked up to all of these retro consoles below. That means at a touch of a button, I can change which console is displayed here on this incredible CRT TV. As I said at the start of this video, the games room is all about being able to play any game I want anytime. And this video audio switch is fantastic for just that. One thing I do want to upgrade in the games room over time is the ability to have an HDMI switcher for some of my more modern consoles. All of my consoles are hooked up and ready to go at any one time, but unfortunately when it comes to the modern consoles, this TV only has 3 HDMI inputs, and this is nowhere near enough. So eventually I want to upgrade and get myself an HDMI splitter, much the same like this one I've got for the CRT. As I've said all along, the games room is all about playing the games, and all of these consoles are hooked up and ready to go except for these two. These are spares. So I have a spare PS1 and also the original Master System for the very first episode I ever did here on YouTube. Unfortunately, all these years later, it's still unworking, but it's just a piece I can't get rid of. I'm going to go through these consoles one by one. So I've tried to put these in order release for each console, and all of these are wired up and ready to go. Most of the time I also have controllers ready as well. So we have the Sega Saturn, then the Sega Dreamcast. Then moving up here we have 2 variants of the Mega Drive. So we have the Mega Drive 1 with the Mega CD 1, which is by far and away the most beautiful edition of this incredible console. And on top we have a Mega Drive 2, which in turn has the Master System 2 converter in the top. Below that, we have my PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 2. These are both hooked up and ready to go, and that's why I didn't have the original PS1 plugged in. On the side here, we go into the PlayStation 3 and the PlayStation 4. Now, what you will notice is some of this glass is incredibly dirty, and this is something I really struggle with. If somebody can recommend an easy way to keep this glass clean, please comment below. Next, we're on to Nintendo and the Nintendo 64 and 2 GameCubes. That's because, honestly, I couldn't decide which GameCube to plug in, so I've got them both ready to go. Moving on up, we have the NES and the SNES, as well as the Super Game Boy player for the SNES, because, honestly, if I'm going to play Game Boy games, this is the way I normally play them. Just below, we have the Wii and the Wii U. Now, the majority of the time, I do use the Wii U to play Wii games, but, strangely, I will use the Wii to play GameCube games. This one is a bit of a strange one. So here we have my OG Crystal Xbox, and here's the thing. Unlike most of the consoles in this unit, the OG Xbox is so vast, it doesn't fit in the unit. So I've kind of just had to leave the glass out on this one, which is a shame, but it does mean I can store my Street Fighter Xbox 360 arcade stick above there. And speaking of the Xbox 360, below we have the Xbox One, even though this one has sadly been relegated since I've had the Xbox Series X. Continuing the Xbox theme, we have not one but two collector's editions here, the Gears of War Xbox 360 and the lesser spotted Resident Evil 5 Xbox 360, and just below is something which I'm working on in the future, my mini consoles. Now each one of these has its own separate HDMI switch, and honestly I just want to get these all hooked up to one so I can switch between them nice and easily. Now hopefully you will agree this is a very nice setup when it comes to gaming. But for me, gaming is all about the ambience and the lighting, and trust me, the games room really comes to life in the night. The games room really changes after dark. This is where the lighting really comes into effect and just creates a fantastic ambience for just gaming and relaxing. Just look at the Ambilight TV, the lights in the cabinets. It's not that dark at the moment, but in the depths of the night, it's just so nice to chill out in here, just to game until the early hours. And I think just the lighting here just creates a nice ambience. For me, gaming is all about comfort, and honestly, I can't imagine anywhere else I'd rather be playing the game. There we have it then, folks. That was my Games Room Tour 2024. And even though it's been 3 long years since the last tour of the Games Room, this could be the last tour we ever have in this Games Room as such. That's because as the collection continues to grow and grow, I am slowly outgrowing this room. But fear not, I do have a plan for the future, and it is a big plan, and it's still a fair way away. But trust me, you do not want to miss it. It is one of the biggest projects I'm ever going to undertake. And again, trust me, you don't want to miss it. So make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, and join me next time for the next tour of my Games Room, wherever that may be. Now, I'm getting back to playing the game. See you all soon.